Ms. Hanley, you may give the first portion of your closing argument, and I'll give you a warning at 45 minutes. No. Might be on mute. Did you turn the battery on? Yep.
Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury, Vashti Seacat was leaving her marriage. After lots of thought, careful consideration, counseling, she'd filed for divorce, and she had the defendant served with divorce papers just 2 days before she died. She wanted out, and that's not what the defendant wanted. That's not what he wanted, and when he didn't get his way, he had to kill Vashti. He was running out of opportunity to kill her. He only had a couple more nights that he was going to be staying at the house. He was supposed to be out of the house by Sunday, so he had to get it done. It was like a burning fuse. He had to get it done. And that's why he did some of the things out in the open. That's why he did some things that were a little bit reckless. And that's why he set the fire. He counted on that fire. He thought it would destroy all the evidence at the crime scene. He needed it to destroy all the evidence at the crime scene. He banked on that fire. And he banked on his belief that firemen are idiots. That's what he counted on when he set the fire. And that brings us back to what I told you in opening. There's only one reason that anyone would set that fire: to cover up evidence at the crime scene, and that's what the defendant did. Now we've come to the point in the trial where you've heard all of the evidence, and it's time for you to decide whether or not the state has met its burden and proved beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed all 4 of the crimes that he's charged with. And what I'm going to do to try and help you sort through all that evidence, because we've been here a while, we've had lots of days of testimony, I'm going to walk you through a timeline of events that the testimony established, and then we'll go through by category and topic area the different points of evidence. Starting on April 29th in the early morning hours, shortly before 8 a.m., this is when Vashti takes the kids, her 2 sons, Brendan and Bronson, to the daycare in Wichita. She drops them off, and Mandy Cupper, who's there when she drops them off, says she's happy. She's upbeat. This is the day before she died. The defendant was at KLETC at work that day. Mid-morning, 10 a.m., he's in his office. He's got the door locked. The lights are off. And he's got legal papers spread all over his desk, along with cards from Vashti. Carol Newell told you this. That's what he's doing at 10 a.m. the day before Vashti dies. That day at noon, Vashti goes to lunch with one of her friends at Cox Communications. And this is Joy Trotnick. She testified that they went to lunch at Dillon's. They bought some food, and she said that Vashti bought a $50 money order for parenting classes that were part of the divorce. She was with Vashti when she's spending $50 on a money order the day before she died. Back at KLETC, what is the defendant doing? Early that afternoon, he approaches Karen Roberts. You remember that Karen Roberts testified that she works at KLETC. She's one of the assistants there. And he came in and he asked for an overhead projector, which she thought was odd because nobody had asked for one in years. Nobody had asked for one at all that Karen Roberts could remember. It was also odd because he said he needed it to research a fraud thing, and the defendant didn't teach fraud. Later that day, after Karen Roberts help the defendant find the overhead projector, she saw him take it back to where he got it from in the old dorms. And we're winding down the day. Now we're at 4 o'clock, the day before Vashti dies. What's the defendant doing? He torches 2 hard drives out in the open. He asks for help from Jerry Devine. He torches those at work at KLETC. He says he's got to get rid of them because there's personal information on there. And we also know now that the defendant took the stand and admitted that he was destroying cell phones that day too while he was at work. And we'll come back to that. At the end of the day, there's some communication by phone and text message between Vashti and the defendant. At 4:53, the defendant texts Vashti. A few minutes later, she sends a text back. At 5:25, she's picking up the children from daycare. She calls the defendant, probably while she's driving home. Between 6 and 7 o'clock that night, she has text messages with her friend, Jamie Arnold. And this is the discussion about the treadmill. She's going to sell Jamie a treadmill. She wants to know if she wants to pick it up tonight or tomorrow. And Jamie says tomorrow. So she's making plans, Vashti is, for the next morning. And that evening, further into the evening, around 9 o'clock, she has text communication with Jill Aaron. You also heard her testimony. This is the conversation where Jill's commiserating with her, as Vashti wants the defendant out of the house, but she's agreed to let him stay because she wants to keep the peace. She gives him till Sunday at noon. Now, late that night, you heard that Vashti was on Facebook, 11:11 p.m. And she's not just logging on to Facebook, she's accepting 3 different friend requests to see what's going on with people in her life. That's what she's doing just hours before her death. She logs off of Facebook, and the next thing that we know from the timeline is the gunshot heard by Cammie Smith. And I want to stop and talk to you about that for a moment. You'll recall that the testimony surrounding what Cammie Smith heard involved Cammie Smith and some employees from Investigation Discovery and Agent Cole.